بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين محمد رسول الله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا كثيرا. أما بعد, my brothers and sisters, the issue of being grateful, of gratitude, this is a very major issue in the raising of children. Teaching children the value of gratitude, of being grateful, and of expressing gratitude. This is the reason, of course, from Islamically speaking, this is something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordered us to do. Where in Surah Ibrahim, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَإِذْ تَعَذَّنَ رَبُّكُمْ لَإِن شَكَرْتُمْ لَأَزِيدَنَّكُمْ وَلَإِن كَفَرْتُمْ إِنَّ عَذَابِي لَشَدِيدٌ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said that remember when your Rabb proclaimed, the one who is grateful to me, I will enhance and increase my blessing, and the one who is ungrateful, let him beware that my punishment is severe. So we are instructed to be thankful and to show and express that gratitude. Now sometimes people say, but why? What is the point of saying thank you all the time? Now those of us who visit the West or live in the West, we know that there are two things that here which are very, very common, and unfortunately they are not common in our cultures, in our societies. One is to say thank you, and the other one is to say sorry. You will see people for the minutest things, right? People will say this. And third one, another one is please. Please can I do this? Please can I do that? And I think these are three very, very important values to inculcate in children, because please implies that the child does not have an entitlement mentality. The child doesn't think that just because something is there, he can pick it up or he can just go somewhere or do something. When you are saying please, you are acknowledging that other people have rights, that other people have, other people deserve respect, and that you are respecting their rights, and you're doing that by saying please can you do this, please can you do that. Sorry, again, very important, because we all make mistakes, and forgiveness is the essence of all good relationships. You cannot have a relationship, any relationship in the world, you cannot have one unless you are willing to forgive. We all make mistakes, and therefore to seek forgiveness and to give and to forgive are two absolutely critical elements. This is so critical that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned that. Rasool of Allah told us, Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, if you do not speak to a Muslim brother more than, he said it is haram for a Muslim not to speak to another Muslim, to be offended with him for more than 3 days. And he said if the one, in that period, the one who makes the attempt to reconcile, even if it's just by saying salam, this person is superior to the other person. And he said if you continue this enmity over a period of beyond a period of 3 days, and if you die, he said you will go to Jahannam. I mean, it's as serious as that. So forgiveness, seeking it and giving it, and this is what we also ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for. We ask Allah to forgive us not because we deserve it, but because we say, oh Allah, you are the most forgiving. Allahumma innaka afuwun tuhibbul afu fa'fu anni. Oh Allah, you are the most forgiving, you are the one who forgives, you are the most forgiving, you love to forgive, so forgive me. And this is the dua that Rasulullah taught to Ummuna Aisha radiallahu anha, our mother Aisha Siddiqa radiallahu anha. When she asked him, she said, Ya Rasulullah, if I get Laylatul Qadr, what dua should I make? And he taught her this dua. Allahumma innaka afuwun tuhibbul afu fa'fu anni. So that's the second one, which is sorry. And the third one is to thank. Right? So please, sorry, and thank you. We mentioned, I mentioned the issue of thanking with the dalil of the Quran. The other thing is sometimes people say, oh, but why should I thank? What is the need? I mean, he knows or she knows that I am grateful. Why should I say it all the time? The issue is not, so the obvious question is that doesn't Allah know that you are thankful? I mean, Allah knows what's in your heart. So if you think that some individual, some human being, whoever it might be, knows that you are thankful, right? Maybe it's somebody who's serving you, some servant of yours, driver of yours, cook of yours, bearer, butler, whoever, employee of yours, your wife, your husband, your children, your parents, whoever it is. If you are not thanking them, and if you are not saying to them, if you are not expressing your thanks to them, assuming that they know, the question is, Allah knows, right? They may or may not know, but Allah definitely knows. Then why is Allah saying, why is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala not only is Allah instructing and ordering us to be thankful, but to express that thanks, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, if you don't do that, I will punish you. Right? Allah said, my punishment is severe. He didn't say, I will punish you, but He said, my punishment is severe. The point here is to understand is that thankfulness, to express thankfulness, is about you. It's not about the other. Whether the other person knows or does not know is not the question. The question is, do you express that thanks or not? That's very, very important. It's very important to teach children this, that to thank, to say please, and to say sorry. The other important thing to understand is, and always remind yourself, is that you can never repay a kindness. Now, many times people think, oh well, I'm repaying somebody. You can never repay, because the person who did the kindness to you, the first one, the person who did the kindness to you the first time, did that of their own accord, of their own volition. You did not do anything to deserve that kindness. They were kind to you, they were nice to you, they helped you, they did whatever they did for you. Now, whatever you may do, you are doing because of what you received. The two are never equal. What someone does by themselves, voluntarily, the first time, cannot be ever equal to the repayment of that. Right? Cannot ever be equal to the repayment of that. So by all means, do try to repay, do say, do express your thanks, but don't ever imagine that somebody did you a kindness and you went and gave them a cake or something and I'm done. No, you will never be done for the rest of your life. As far as that kindness is concerned, no matter how many times you repay that, it's never repaid. And that's why it is something, if somebody does kindness to you, then remember that you should always be grateful to them and make dua for them and ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help them and keep them in your thoughts and always be good to them and nice to them. It never ends. It can never end. And that's a very important and humbling thing to remember, that somebody's kindness the first time has no equal and can never be repaid. Whatever you do is a reaction. What they did was not a reaction. Now, each of these things that I mentioned to you, the behaviors, can be linked to one or more of the evils of our society. Because our society is stratified according to economic circumstances, not according to knowledge or moral values or being honorable. A society where people don't care for other people, where the self is worshipped and indulgence is the supreme goal, where freedom is defined as the ability to indulge your whims with impunity, even when some of that indulgence may be breaking the law, whether it's the law of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala or the law of the country, you can see the character of a nation reflected in the things they compete for. Ask what you see Muslims competing for today. And that's a very important thing to think about. The character of a nation is decided or is demonstrated in the things that people compete for. Because people compete for things which they consider to be important. And whatever people consider to be important is a reflection of their character. Is a reflection in their culture of their character. So ask what Muslims today are competing for. Is it knowledge? Is it compassion? Is it charity? Is it piety? Is it contribution? Or is it plain, crass consumption, ostentation, bling, arrogance, satisfying animal lusts, and accumulating expensive garbage? Which one? Very, very important that we understand this. Even people who are not Muslim. Somebody took a picture of what was in Gandhiji's room when he died. He had a pair of sandals, he had those round spectacles, he had a watch, an eating bowl, and a plate and a khadi dhoti. The world bore witness to the fact that he went to meet King George in his dhoti. Replying to a journalist whether he didn't feel underdressed to meet the king in a dhoti, Gandhiji's response was, "The king wears enough for both of us." And this was a perfect response. By keeping his wits as well as his wit about him, Gandhiji showed the world what is to be taken seriously and what is to be brushed off with a quick line and supreme demonstration of self-confidence. Not only did the world accept this, but Gandhiji is the first non-royal to appear on a British postage stamp. He made it there before Churchill, who refused to meet him, saying, "I refuse to meet that naked fakir until he learns to dress properly." The naked fakir smiled when he heard the comment, because he was looking at a future when he was about to kick Churchill and Churchillian ways out of his country. Muslim children must learn that Islam is not just a set of rituals of worship, but a complete way of life, where duties to people are mentioned along with duties to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. See, talking about the value of material possessions, what did Rasulullah have in his house when he passed away? I'm not comparing Nabi Sallallahu to Gandhiji. I'm saying Nabi Sallallahu as the best example of all, for all mankind, for all time. What did he have? How many times have you heard the narrative about his last moments on earth? Aisha Siddiqa radiallahu anha said, "We didn't have oil for a lamp. They had no food in the house." She said that he asked her, he was in the state of sakrat, state of his nadar. Last moments, he was losing consciousness and he was regaining consciousness. He asked for a bowl of water and the water was brought and he put his hand in it and he wiped his face with it. And he asked Aisha Siddiqa radiallahu anha, "Do you have any money in the house?" And she brought some dirhams. He said, "Give it away." He said, "Give it away in charity." She said, "Yes, Rasul, I will do it." Now remember, she is sitting there, he is lying with his blessed head in her lap. She is about to lose her husband. Not just any husband, this is the Rasool of Allah, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So he asked her, then he lost consciousness. When he got back consciousness again, he said, "Aisha, have you given that in charity?" She said, "Yes, sir, Ya Rasul, I will give it." Happened a second time. Happened a third time. Then he said, "Bring it here." She brought it. He said, "Give it to me." He gave it to her. She gave it to him. He took that money in his hand and he said, "Ya Aisha, do you want your husband, do you want the Rasool of Allah, the Messenger of Allah, to meet Allah in this state?" What is the state? A few coins in his hand. What is wrong with that? He said, "Give it away." The home of the one, the best of all creation, not just the best of humans, the best of anything ever created, is the Rasool of Allah, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. In terms of possessions, what does he have? Nothing. In terms of contribution, 1400 years later, somebody like me is sitting here thanks to his message and talking to you and trying to convey the values that he exemplified. Not my values, values that he exemplified, which I try to follow and I ask you to try to follow. That is a contribution. 1400 years later, all over the world, people who did not know him in person, who had never seen him, who never sat in his blessed company, who never heard his blessed voice, but to love him more than they love anyone and anything else on the face of the earth. How does it happen? It happens with a focus on contribution, not by consumption. It doesn't happen by consumption. And remember, Islam is not against money. The issue is to change that point in the heart. As I speak to you today, the net worth of Elon Musk is $269 billion. The net worth of Jeff Bezos is $187 billion. The net worth of Bill Gates is $132 billion. You add up those two, you add up these three, you get $588 billion. The net worth of Abdurrahman ibn Auf radiallahu anhu, when he passed away, just the gold part of it was in today's money $791 billion, which is over $150 billion more than the net worth of Elon Musk, Bill Gates, and Jeff Bezos put together. And that's not all, because that 791 billion does not include his properties, his they used to have livestock, so he doesn't include the literally hundreds of thousands of sheep and camels and horses and whatnot he had. All that is extra. And even more importantly, the net worth of people like Elon Musk and Bill Gates and Jeff Bezos and Warren Buffett and whoever, their net worth is effectively the share value of their stock in their companies. And in the case of Warren Buffett, and of course the others as well, it would be stock value of their shareholding. Now the fact remains that if Elon Musk sells one share of Tesla, the stock value will drop. So Elon Musk's net worth will plummet and hit rock bottom if he starts selling his shares. Whereas in the case of Abdurrahman ibn Auf radiallahu anhu, 791 billion was the value of his gold which he had, which is liquid cash. When he died, there was, in terms of the, he left 3.2 billion gold dinars, which together amounted to 13,000 tons of gold, which in today's numbers amounts to 791 billion. There is a huge difference between notional value and real value of liquid cash, of gold. Huge difference between stock value, shareholding, and gold. Now, why am I telling you all this? To show to you that Islam is not against money. Islam is not against wealth. Islam is not socialism. Islam is not communism. Islam is Islam. The same Abdurrahman ibn Auf radiallahu anhu, one time, a caravan came, which belonged to him, came to Medina. It had 700 camels, loaded with goods. So obviously there was a big commotion and so on, camels coming and so on. Sayyidah Aisha Siddiqa radiallahu anha heard this commotion. She came out of her house and she said, "What's happening?" They said, "Ya Ummana." I said, "Oh, my mother, Abdurrahman ibn Auf's caravan has come." And somebody says Abdurrahman has become ghani. He has become, ghani meaning he is very wealthy and so on. Aisha Siddiqa radiallahu anha said, "Sadaqa Rasool of Allah." She said Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam spoke the truth. And she went back into her house. Someone went and told Abdurrahman ibn Auf radiallahu anhu They said that Aisha Siddiqa radiallahu anha came out of her house, she saw your caravan, and she said Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam spoke the truth. So the merchants, they had gathered around him, they were saying, how much will you sell this for, and so on. So all this was going on when he heard this. So he said to them, he said, wait, let me find out what it is. So he went to her house, and he said to her, Ya Ummuna, he said, oh my mother, what did Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam say? She said, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, Abdul Rahman will enter Jannah crawling because of giving hisab, of giving account for his wealth. Abdul Rahman bin Auf radiallahu anhu said, Alhamdulillah, Jazakallah, I want to enter Jannah walking, not crawling. And he said, you are my witness, that whole caravan I am giving it away in charity. So he came out of there, he came to the market, and so people said to him, so I want to buy this, we want to buy this, how much? So he said, I have sold it already. He said, sold? To whom? What rate? He said, I have sold it at a rate of 1:10. 1:10 meaning 1000%, 10 times the value. They said, who is there to give you 10 times the value? We know we are the traders here, this is our market. Who will give you 10 times the value for this? He said, I've got a buyer. He said, don't worry about that. He said, I have a buyer, and my buyer is giving me 10 times the value, 1:10. That is what I am talking about, contribution. The economic system of Islam is not capitalism. It's not a combination of communism and capitalism. It's a system which is based on piety, on kindness, on compassion, on truthfulness, on justice, and on giving more rather than less. It's an economic system that is based on the rights of the poor before anybody else. That's why interest is haram in Islam. This is what we have to understand and teach. It's not the love for the dunya in the heart. Value for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's promises. Value for what Allah will give us. And that's not only about talking. It's about respecting and understanding that. That real value is this. My brothers and sisters, children must learn, as I said before, that Islam is to be practiced in our whole lives. They must be taught how worship adds value in this life, how it gives them a competitive advantage to win in this life. Because this day starts with a zikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ideally, teach them to wake up in tahajjud, pray tahajjud, then read one juz of Quran, one sipara, then go to the masjid for Salatul Fajr, pray Salatul Fajr with Jama'ah, and then their day starts. And then the day should end with praying Salatul Isha by Jama'ah in the masjid, and after that, before they go to bed, then the azkar of the night, reading Surah Sajda, reading Suratul Mulk, and if Allah gives tawfiq, reading Suratul Waqi'ah, because Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, the one who reads Suratul Waqi'ah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not allow him to, allow poverty to touch him. And of course, as we know, praying Salatul Isha and praying Salatul Fajr by Jama'ah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives the reward for worshipping the whole night. You pray Salatul Isha by Jama'ah in the masjid, you get the reward for worshipping half the night. And you complete that by praying Salatul Fajr also in the masjid, you get the reward for praying the full night. Imagine how beautiful such days would be. Link the children to asking Allah, not asking anybody else. Right? Ask Allah. I still remember an incident that happened with me more than 25 years ago. There was a friend of ours we were traveling with him in New York, and he was taking us from point A to point B. And in his car was his little son. And his son was about maybe 5, 6 years old. So we were chatting, and then the son said, Daddy, did Allah Ta'ala put in your heart? So I thought that was a strange question from this little boy. So I asked my friend, I said, what is Allah supposed to put in your heart? So my friend said that when I told him that I am taking you from this place to this place, on the way is his friend's house. So he asked me whether he can come along and whether I would drop him to his friend's place. So I told him, you can come, but make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to put it in my heart. If he puts it in my heart, I drop you. Otherwise, you just come with me and you come back. So he's asking me now whether Allah put this in my heart. And then he said to me a very interesting thing. He said to me that we have brought him up. That is my wife and his wife and him. He said we brought him up to ask Allah for anything he wants. So if he wants a chocolate, his mother will say to him, ask Allah. If Allah puts in my heart, I will give you. Whatever it is he wants toys, anything he likes, ask Allah. So he said this little fellow has a little musalla. He actually, at home he says he goes and he puts his musalla and he stands and he, in sujood, or he sits or stands, or he prays 2 rakat of salah and he asks Allah. That is call it what you want, indoctrination, conditioning, brainwashing. It's beautiful. It is very, very beautiful. You need the brain to be washed in such a way that there is no azmat and no greatness of anyone other than Allah in the mind and in the heart. And that is how soon it starts. Raising of children starts from the minute the child is born. Because remember, believe me, whatever you say and do, these children, they pick it up. You'll be surprised at what age they pick it up. You will be surprised at what age they pick it up. They literally, so they're a year old, 2 years old. You think they don't understand anything. They understand a lot. And they pick up what they need to pick up. And when they are very young, they don't even have the ability to clarify. So those impressions just form. So be very careful what kind of impressions that you are giving them. The whole issue of connecting with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and how this gives them an insider's advantage, enabling them to infuse barakah into all that they say and do, so that they get the maximum result with the minimum effort. That is the essence of leverage. Minimum effort, maximum impact. And it is our inability to interpret Islam and show how it makes sense today that gets our children disconnected from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They are disconnected because we are disconnected. After all, you can only give what you have. So ask, what do I have? And then make the effort to upgrade yourself. A candle does not light a room by doing anything to the room. It lights up the room by igniting itself. So learn to take from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and give to your children. Think about this, if you can't even give to your own children, what can you give to the world? The way to do this, the way to take from the treasure of Allah and give to the world is to follow the sunnah of Rasool of Allah. My brothers and sisters, make no mistake. If you do not follow the sunnah of Rasool of Allah, you will get nothing. Try it for yourself and regret it when you die. Or follow the sunnah and be very happy when you die. It's your call. All of these things, they make the Muslim child a walking, talking example of the way of Islam, and will differentiate him from the rest of the world, and will make him a benchmark and a role model for others. As I speak to you, there's an incident that has happened in Karnataka. I think it's in the town of Mandya, on the way between Bangalore and Mysore. And the world knows this incident. That incident is that there's one girl, one small girl, in an engineering college wearing a burqa and a niqab, who comes in on her scooter, parks a scooter, and as she is going into the college to study, she is being heckled by maybe 30, 40 antisocial elements who are screaming at her because she is Muslim. She continues to walk and she raises her hand and she says, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Imagine what kind of parents would have raised that girl, who in a situation which can, of danger, a situation which would have frightened the daylights. I mean, just looking at that situation frightens people. But didn't bother her, because she is connected with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And she says, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Allah Ta'ala is the greatest. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, la hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. And all of these rest are dogs barking. All of these rest, they have no power. They can do nothing to me. And wallahi, they can do nothing to her. And they did nothing to her. They could do nothing to her. Imagine if, think about this. I've been thinking to myself, subhanAllah, how fortunate is that girl to have parents like that? And how fortunate are those parents that all their raising and their training and their du'as, they saw them bearing fruit in front of their eyes. And what better fruit than to see your child stand up alone against the whole world and say, Allahu Akbar. Ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give you children like this. And ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make you parents who raise children like this. ربنا ظلمنا أنفسنا وإن لم تغفر لنا وترحمنا لنكونن من الخاسرين. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. وصلى الله على النبي الكريم وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.